Alright, so I've run a few tests. In theory, this should be working, and it is very possible that in a moment you might hear a little bit of echo. Alright, there we go. So, we're running. We're up and running. I just had to mute my second screen. This is Jeremy from jeremy.net, and things look a little different this week. Why? Because I have finished inking all the pages of Morningstar issue 7. So the only thing left is for me to graytone the pages and then finish the cover and send it off to the printer. Now, as you've been watching, I've done plenty of live streams. I have also posted videos of me recording my screen while I am working. What I have not done up till now is produce a live stream while sharing my screen. So this is a little new to me. Getting the software to work has been just finding the right settings. The one problem that I had, and that's the reason why I was a little late this morning, is I was trying to set up, because you can schedule the way I normally will schedule, usually the day before, what time I'm going on, and usually it tends to be 11 a.m. on Sundays. But I could not get, I couldn't get it to schedule using the same setup that I get it to share the screen. So I still have to work that out so that I can let you guys know in advance when I'm going to be on and make sure it sends out the proper link. So for now, I had to wait to the last minute and then just go live, and here it is. But anyway, my name is Jeremy. For those of you that are new, I write, draw, and self-publish comics. I'm currently working on a series called Morningstar. It's Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. If you'd like to support my YouTube channel and my comic creation, you can go to patreon.com/Jeremy. If you'd like to read some of my comics, you can go to comics.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to buy some of my comics, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. All right. If I remember, I will pull that up at the end of the video. But for now, let me keep my eye on the page and let's just get in here, get started. I'm going to try to remember to keep my eye on the chat, although this setup, again, a little different for me, so I have to have a tablet set up on the side with the chat on it, instead of having it up on the screen while I'm working. And if you guys notice anything, if the sound isn't coming through, or if for some reason you can't, I don't know, something happens, the camera freezes, or the quality is pretty bad, it all looks good to me on my end and on the second screen where I'm watching it. But yeah, if anything seems weird or wonky to you, let me know and I will do my best to address it. So it has been a good long while since I have done any gray tones. And it's odd because each time that I am starting a new page, or each time I'm starting a new set of gray tones, meaning I'm coming back after not having done this for, I don't know, however many months it's been since the last issue, in a way, I kind of feel like I have to learn how to do it all over again. And I think part of that is because color work, and yes, these are values, not colors, working on gray tones, but value work is something that I don't necessarily, well, actually, no, I consider myself pretty good at values, which is the reason why I'm doing a black and white comic instead of a color one. But still, I think I get so wrapped up in the line art, and the line work, that a lot of times coming in here and doing this, it's just a little bit of, you know, similar to inking. I do thumbnails in ink with a brush so that I can keep my sort of keep my wrist loose and stay I don't know, I guess stay in practice. And I think that I have not been doing a digital equivalent of that for gray toning or drawing digitally. So whenever I sit down to do this, it always feels like I'm kind of out of practice. And plus, much with my inking, I continue to sort of tweak my approach. And I think I tweak my approach in terms of the gray tones too, working out the values and how I want the light to work on different planes, how I want to separate light from dark. Because there's a certain level of where I'm trying to... What are the words I'm looking for? Well, I guess it's down to value versus local color, meaning drawing an object, or in this case, toning an object whose coloring, whose appearance would be similar to being a dark object versus a light object. Well, for instance, these demons are all very, very dark. You know, versus the skin tones of the archangels. And then versus the lighting of an object that's just actually in light. It's in a bright area. And I think I'm constantly going back and forth between those two different issues and trying to figure out what looks best. And I think I'm going to go lighter on this deer to try to make him pop off of this dark background. Again, this is something I may go back and forth and paint it in, then paint it out again, then paint it in again, paint it out again. I was prepared for that level of indecisiveness when I start. The chat is coming alive. I see Amaris is in the chat. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. If I am more off of my game than usual, if I'm a little bit more rambly, or if I seem like I'm just sort of like, what is he talking about? He's not making any sense. It's because only in the past few months, like, I mean, I've been doing live streams for a while now, but only in the past few months have I really felt like I got my mojo, where I'm very capable of drawing at the quality that I want while talking. Like, for the longest time, I was drawing, but I wasn't necessarily as happy with the artwork coming out as I would have liked to have been. And it was just having my attention divided. But I feel like I've really gotten pretty good at talking and inking at the same time. But this is something that definitely feels like I'm almost starting from scratch in terms of getting the values that I want, getting it to the art to actually look the way I want to. So, oh, I see Ion Rocks in the chat. Hey, nice to see you, man. We're doing something a little different here. I'm on to, because I have finished inking all the pages of Morningstar. Yay! And so, now we are on to Graytones. I thought, well, I've been sharing everything else. You know, might as well drop my draws for this part too. But this definitely is going to be rockier in terms of me working my way through it than the other phases. And Iron Rock says, that's just amazing. I appreciate that. Thank you. This is one of the panels that I had drawn. Again, when I go back and forth, and I'll say, no, I'll redraw a panel 2 or 3 times. This one, I think I redid it a couple of times before I got what I wanted. But a lot of that came from me changing the shot on the page before it. So originally, this page started with a demon up in the trees and then jumping down onto the demon. You could see its reflection in the water. And just there's something about it that didn't sit right with me. And I ended up changing it to this now. So on the page before this is the demon is sort of like a crocodile with its eyes just below the water. And then he sort of splashes up and out as we see here. So, you know, just tweaking things as needed. I'd made a couple of test streams to try and figure out how to set this up so that I could share my screen while live streaming. And I'd mentioned in those test streams that what did I mention? See, this is what I'm talking about. I literally had a train of thought, was pursuing that train of thought, and lost the train of thought in the middle. This is what happens when I'm trying to do something new, like the streaming at the same time while I'm drawing. Well, you know what? If it's important, it'll come back to me. Otherwise, I'll just keep at it. It was something to do with the tones of the demons as I'm drawing. Oh yeah, that's what it was. I had mentioned up at the top of the screen, I've got these little bars here, and all these bars is black, white, 10% gray, 20% gray, 30% gray, 40% gray, and 50% gray. And I don't know, does my cursor even show up on the screen? Are you guys able to see that thing? Anyway, the reason why I've got these bars up here is because I've found that when doing a comic in gray tones, if I go anything darker than 50% gray, it really starts to just become muddy in the sense that it's not... 50% gray is still much lighter than black, but in print, when a book actually physically comes out, it really doesn't read well. It just comes out like a very murky color. So I usually don't go dark, try not to go darker than 50%. And the reason why I've got the little swatches up top is because, in Photoshop, I can just, well, I mean, as you can see right here, the swatches are kind of along off to the side. But when I was working on my laptop has a much smaller space. Well, actually, it's two things. One is sometimes when I'm working, I want to get in close, and I don't really want this hanging over the screen. I kind of want to just have the whole thing there open so I can see it. And I just like having those color bars off to the side. So they're the same colors that are in the swatches, but for some reason I just like having them in the screen for me to pick from as I go. And even though I see myself falling into this habit, I try not to pick from the colors in here, because believe it or not, the values of gray in here are slightly different than the grays up here, only because the line art, this layer, just has... Not everywhere. There's places where it's just pure white and it doesn't affect what's underneath. But there are places where it'll just shift it a few pixels darker and a few pixels darker. And if I end up selecting colors from there, eventually the whole thing might start feeling a little bit uneven. But I could just be being way too OCD about this whole thing. But it also makes me less likely to select the wrong color accidentally. I don't know if the meowing is coming through, but our cat Kachu is at my feet again, saying, "What are you doing? How come you're not playing with me? I've got cat toys that you bought for me. You should be, Hey!" Sometimes they try to chew on the cords underneath the computer, which, A, I don't want them to get electrocuted. B, I don't want them chewing on the cords and destroying my computer. I would prefer to have a non-destroyed computer. I think most people prefer non-destroyed to destroyed. Alright. In a strange way, I'm almost like, as I'm drawing this page, I'm getting the urge to move out and move around the page a little bit. Like, I feel like I'm going to get a little bit too stuck in trying to get the values right. Like, I'm going to spend too much time sitting here painting this deer that I really don't need to spend, when I could just move on to like the next parts of the page, and then just kind of go in and say, all right, what details does it need where? In fact, let's go out to the full page. Oh, this little rattle is a cat toy. I swear to God, you know, people, we love our cats, but people, you know, often say, well, you know, cats are aloof and they don't really want to, you know, they don't want, you know, to let people pet them. You know, they're not as affectionate as dogs. Our cats are the neediest bitches. I love them, but they are constantly underfoot. Flatting. I've not talked about flatting. Flatting is a process that professional colorists usually will have someone working with them performing a very important job, which is they'll go in and they'll make selections with the lasso, and like they'll select anything that's supposed to be the same color. So let's say they select all of the deer, and then they'll go in and they'll make that one color, and the color doesn't matter. The color is just there so that the artist who's doing the final colors can come in and make selections quickly so that they can lay their colors on top of these. In fact, sometimes you intentionally use garish colors so that they really stand out and you can separate one material from another. So it's really more about kind of like IDing materials. You'd go through and say, all right, here's all of the grass. You know, here's the rocks. Selection for the sky. You know, selection for the background trees, what have you. Because I'm doing this in black and white, and because I'm working with kind of a limited palette, it doesn't really feel necessary for me to go in and make those kinds of detailed selections. So I don't really use flats, just for the sake of, I guess, because it just makes sense for me to call them that. What I do have is a layer where all I do is just separate out the panels. So I can select just the panel itself quickly, so I make sure that if I'm coloring something, my brush, I don't have to be precise and worry about it not going out into the gutter or into the panels adjacent to it, because sometimes I will get in here and get very scribbly. So that's what I actually have. I call them flats. They are not flats. Flatters are very, very important. They make the lives of the colorists. They're part of the color team, but they make the work go much quicker, since colorists often are working under ridiculous deadlines and having like multiple books they have to color. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I have a great level of respect for comic book colorists. They do so much heavy lifting in the books. So for me, instead of going in and being precise, I'm just sort of going in and saying, you know what, that actually might be the process that I'll do, and just sort of zoom in and out so you can see it. But start by just saying, all right, here's the sky in every page, in every panel. So start with just doing the sky to separate. And right now I have the whole thing filled in with what I consider the darkest tone I'm going to use, which is the 50% gray. And there's definitely panels in here, like if I were to just turn this off altogether, I mean, it's very possible this page could just be mostly, well, if I turn that on, there we go. Yeah, it's very possible this page could actually be mostly just white with just a little bit of tones in some places. In fact, looking at this panel now, I'm realizing I might be going about it wrong. I think I'm going to go back in. This is the other thing. I'm kind of okay to just start with, when I'm starting with early pages, I don't really mind starting a page, gray toning it back. You know what, this isn't working. Let me try another approach and start again. That's the other advantage of doing black and white. With this limited palette, I can kind of keep it simple. So I don't know why I had to say that twice. Some more comments in the chat. I see Ashutosh is in there. He said, great work, very inspirational. I really appreciate that. The fact that I can make anything that, you know, inspires other people is very humbling to me, because, you know, just like you guys, I'm another artist on a creative journey trying to learn and grow. I see Justin H on there. He said, thanks for following me on Instagram. No problem, Justin. I actually really enjoy checking out your work. It's you got a lot of cool stuff on there. Um, I don't necessarily have time to follow everyone on Instagram, but feel free to put your handles in the chat if you got them, and I'll try to definitely check your work out. A lot of times when I'm on Instagram, I mostly go on there, post my work, and then close the app because otherwise I'll get lost in it and not get any work done. But sometimes I'll go in there and just see what people are doing, and there's just so much great art on IG. All right, I'm going to select all, and I'm just going to fill all of this duplicate flat layer with, with white. And one of the things I tend to do is I tend to lock my artwork layer so I don't accidentally put tones over it. I don't accidentally paint on it, which I don't want to do. All right, so let's go here again, and this time, this page is very outdoorsy, very bright. So maybe that approach I was doing was starting from the darks and working to the lights. I don't think necessarily works that well. So let's go. In fact, let's start at the end and work backwards. Let's memento this shit. Let's go here to the demon and start with him. And I didn't delete my the colors the gray tones that I had previously done. I just turned it off and created a new layer so I can try this again, because I may decide that I don't like this approach. I may go back and decide I want to take tones out of that top panel where I had the water in there, but then leave the rest out. I don't know yet. Making it up as I go along. And once I finish with my stream for today, I'm still going to have work to do, because I do have to figure out how to set this up so that I can schedule a post ahead of time and still have it be something where I can share my screen, because I do feel like it's, the fact that it gives you that little alert to let you know when I'm going to be streaming, the fact that I can email the link out to people that might watch the stream but don't necessarily follow me on YouTube or subscribe on the channel when I post it on Twitter or what have you. I was having real problems with that this morning. I was like up till 1 o'clock last night trying to figure out how to set this up for streaming and showing my screen at the same time. Couldn't figure it out. Got tired, and I was like, if I stay up trying to bang my head against this, then I will be exhausted in the morning. So I just figured, go to bed, get up in the morning, take another swipe at it. And really, right up until about a half hour ago, not a half hour ago, like around 10:30, 10:45, I couldn't get it to work. Or actually it was working, I just didn't know it was working because I wasn't able to see the I wasn't able to see the chat. I wasn't able to see the I wasn't able to actually see my screen, so I could hear myself recording the audio, but it wasn't showing up. And I don't know why that was. I just, in the end, I realized I had to watch it through the YouTube app so I could see the chat. But if I wasn't able to get the screen sharing working while live streaming, I was just going to go through and pull out some figure drawings, because I have not done that in a while. And that's not a bad thing, because, my original goal when I started sharing me either doing figure drawing studies or going through my work was to try and do it once a month. But considering how much work I have to do on Morningstar, I really would have preferred to not, I don't say waste time, but I would have preferred not to spend time doing the figure drawing studies when I could be spending that time getting this issue closer to being in the bag. And it's, the main reason why I'm in a hurry is because I want to get this off to the printer by the end of February, so that I'll hopefully get the books back in time for WonderCon at the end of March. And I presume that the printer I work with is pretty good, so I'll definitely, if I get the books off by the end of February, I'll definitely get them back in time for the show. It's just one of those things where I presume that things are going to go wrong. You know what? That is a great lesson. If there is one tip as a creative individual, if you're like, I need some advice, here's some advice. Presume shit will go wrong. Just presume it. It does in real life. It does in my day job. It does in the movies. Shit always goes wrong. Whatever you think, however you presume or hope or plan that things are going to go, usually shit goes wrong. And the fact that aside from, gray toning an entire issue, I mean, a professional colorist could probably gray tone a whole issue in a day if they had to. I mean, they've definitely colored entire books in a day. But if they had a flatter working with them, they could do it in a work day. They've just got those chops down. That's one of the things that I find that really amazes me as a fellow creator looking at the artwork of another creator, is the fact that the color work can be just so beautiful and rich and still be done so quickly. It's like every colorist is Jack Kirby. But the fact that for me only getting, maybe an hour or so a day to work on these, the time that I would presume in my mind you'd think, oh yeah, you could finish in a month. If someone could do it if a professional colorist could do it in a weekend, I should be able to do it in a month. But that time's going to go by fast. That's the other thing I have really taken to heart, is that time just goes by much quicker than you think it will. And I think one of the reasons why I also don't do proper flats for these is, yes, it's more of a simplified palette in terms of just being in gray tones, but also the same way that I really prefer to do my comics with traditional media instead of using digital for like all of my pencils and inks. In that same manner, I also like doing it like this. Makes it feel more like I'm just drawing. Like I'm just going in here, and no, it's not markers, but it kind of feels like that. Like I'm just sort of drawing with a marker in that sense. I see Brandymation is in the chat. Hi, Brandy. Thanks for stopping by, joining us. Just working on a gray toning page out of my comic. You're going to see some, not necessarily grisly stuff in this page, but I had posted some pages before from this issue. This is the second to last issue, and someone commented online, a friend said, wow, that is intense. And there's a lot of intense stuff in this particular issue. It's the second to last issue, and it's sort of like all these angels and demons and all the battles they've been fighting are coming to a head. In a way, starting this particular issue off with something kind of quiet, just these demons chasing a deer. Well, it's not quiet for the deer, but starting it off with something like this is almost like giving the audience a chance to catch its breath before the rails, before the wheels really, before the train really starts to go off the rails. That's what I was trying to say. Pardon me. Again, I didn't stay up super late, but I stayed up till 1, which is later than I should stay up. Not because I'm more of a night owl, which is the reason why I try not to stay up late. Because what will happen is I will just get into the habit of it. My body can very quickly adjust to staying up to like 2 or 3 in the morning every night. What it cannot adjust to is staying up till 2 or 3 in the morning every night and then getting up the next day and getting to work and being able to operate like a normal human being. If I don't get enough sleep, I really am a train wreck. I'm just grumpy and not particularly functional. So I try to avoid that. Yeah, at this point, I'm trying to decide how much I want this deer to have tone, as in, like it's got color, versus how much I want it to put values in here simply to separate the different areas. Because basically, I've got, the demon making up one mass. Then I've got the deer making up another mass. And then I've got sort of the sky and the trees around it. And at this point, I need to separate these and decide one needs to be lighter and one needs to be darker. My instinct says make the tree darker, which is not much darker than I could be wrong about that. There isn't much darker than the demon. So, and I don't want it to completely blend in with the demon either. So I might need to make the deer lighter. First off, let's grab my 10% gray. Let's just block in the ground there a little bit, just to separate the ground from the sky. And actually, I should probably do that in the foreground. No. Looking at this, that separation seems good. Let's try if I just do that to the deer. Lighten the deer up. I apologize for the yawning. Amara says, I'm working on my comic book right now while listening to you. You know what? Again, I find that very flattering, because there will be times when I as well will like to listen to other artists talking about their process while they're working. In a way, it's kind of like, I don't know how many of you in the chat or watching are familiar with the comic creator Peter Palmiotti. He's an inker, indie comic creator, and I've mentioned him before. I'm a fan of his work. He has a YouTube channel that a live stream show that he has done intermittently, depending on his time and whether his computers are giving him trouble or not. But he has a thing he called Studio Synergy, and he'll just get on with a bunch of creators, and much like we're doing, just be on, hanging out and talking and working. And, I don't want to, quote unquote, steal his idea, but if I can figure out how to get, I tried to get a live stream before so I could have my buddies Vince and Carl on with me to kind of, just to mix it up so you're not just listening to me all the time. But if I can get it working technology-wise, because I know it's possible, it's just a matter of figuring out how to set it up the correct way. But setting it up so that a few of you could be in a Google Hangout instead of chatting, instead of using the chat. That way, if you've got a mic, we can just hang out and talk while we're working, that might be something to do every once in a while. It's just sort of, just have a real time hangout and draw. And they call them Google Hangouts for a reason. So, and to be honest, being able to talk with you guys would be easier for me because then I don't have to look down. Again, it's not like looking over and seeing if there's a comment in the chat is a pain in the ass. I'm just bitching and moaning. First world problems, right? If my biggest problem in the day is I'm distracted by a chat while trying to draw, then I'm still a very, very lucky person. And I'm a very lucky person to have people watching me at all while I work. So don't think I don't appreciate y'all. So a lot of times what I will do, I try to tell you that I don't have all of the answers. A lot of times for me, I figure out stuff, I make a mistake, and then I based on the mistake, I'm all, oh, I should be doing this instead. I am not completely happy with how this deer is tone-wise in this panel. Like, it feels like part of him should be darker. But that said, I'm going to move on to the other panel, because a lot of times the way I find the answers is I'll take one panel to a certain level of finish. Same thing with my inking. I'll finish part of it. Like even this, I drew in the demon, then jumped over to that panel, then now I'm jumping back to this panel. But I think actually I'm going to zoom out and work full screen for a sec, or a full page for a sec. And I'm going to go in and do the demon in the rest of the panels. See here. Although looking at this now, again, it makes me want to do that thing. Huh. Let's try this. Whoops. I just said I was going to color in the rest of the demons, but instead I think I'm going to fill this panel with 10% gray, and then come back in with white. And even with this, I'm looking at it wondering if I should go 20%. Something says go 20. All right. Pops a little bit more. I mean, it could be as simple as, in fact, let's try that. Do everything in this page with just sky, and then everything else 20% gray, and then just using the other tones of gray to accent where needed. That might be... This is what I mean when I work through the page and I come up with a approach and then I just test it out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Because what I was trying to do before was a little bit more of a direct coloring approach. Whereas now I'm looking at this page and I'm saying, all right, that's just that simple thing of white and 20% gray and the inks, and then just adding dark as accents needed. I'm rambling and repeating myself mostly because I'm talking my way through what I believe my approach for this page is going to be. Because sometimes I'll hear myself say it out loud and I'm like, no, that's asinine. Sometimes I hear myself say it out loud and I'm all, you're a genius. No, I never say that. I seriously never say that. I say that to my wife sometimes, teasing her. And she'd be like, no, you're... No, actually, she would say that. She's very sweet and very supportive. I could joke and say that she would cut me down, but she's not. She saves her snark for other people. She doesn't aim it at me. She's extremely supportive of my work, and to the point sometimes where I'm like, she can't see some of the things that I think are super horrible in my work. And sometimes it's hard to get honest criticism from loved ones because they really want to be supportive of everything you do, and everything really does look better to them because you made it, which is comforting. It's better than having someone shit on you no matter what you do. But you know what? See, I think that is the big problem in life. Is most people, there's not a healthy balance. People either have abusive jerks in their lives who shit on everything they do and they feel really crappy about their own work and have artistic low self-esteem, or people just tell them that everything they make is beautiful and they are a delicate, unique snowflake and just everyone should just love everything they do, which is also not realistic. And I think the reality is having people who can be supportive but also give you authentic, not just authentic, constructive criticism. That is the word that I think gets left out of criticism so much, is constructive. Someone saying, not saying, oh, you're bad. Someone saying, hey, I see what you're doing. You can do it even better. Let me show you how. That's what I think is missing, I think, from a lot of the discourse. And people just like to say, oh, this sucks or that sucks, instead of genuinely coming from a place of help, of positivity. Let's see. Ion Rock says, okay, you do need to simplify your solid shapes. See, that's coming from a positive place. I know he's coming from a place of love. You know what? And this is one of the big challenges that I have just in terms of even doing graytoning this whole issue, is the fact that I've been trying to not skimp on the visuals. I've been trying to make things not detailed for detailed sake, but I know I just did one of the things I was saying that I wanted to avoid doing earlier, color picking from inside as opposed to color picking from the bars up top. But you know what? Do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, I think there's lots of places in this issue where, because I have been trying to draw more detailed backgrounds. No, when I say detailed, that is not what I mean. I mean more fully realized, meaning if it's a forest, draw trees, draw bushes. Don't just sort of scribble in something indicating a forest. If you're drawing a building, draw the roof, draw the windows, draw the doorknobs on the doors. You know, put all the things that would really be in there. Draw them simply. You know, don't over labor them. But that is a challenge that I have been fighting, is finding that balance between making a world feel fully realized, but at the same time not putting in pointless detail. Like, one of the people that I like to look at, or that I personally started reading his work when I was saying, okay, I need to just learn how to draw better. Let me look at the comic creators who I think just draw phenomenally well. And one of the people that I was looking at was Brian Stelfreeze, the amazing Brian Stelfreeze. I mean, I had been aware of his work, but I mostly hadn't really, like, I mean, I had been reading comics since the 90s, and most of the stuff that I knew him for, I didn't really know much of his sequential work. I just knew him for the beautiful painted covers he did for comics. But I remember reading something that came out from Image Comics, and it was a series called Gun Candy, and it was part of a larger anthology that eventually, I think it was called The Ride. It was just like following this car. I'm getting off into kind of a little bit of a tangent. Point being was that it was the first time that I saw a large, like I had seen pages he had done before, and it kind of reminded me a bit of Tony Harris in terms of like level of detail and rendering. But the thing that struck me is I just was like, oh my god, it's so incredibly detailed. And then I looked closer, and what I realized what he was doing, and I have not learned to do this myself yet, but it's one of the things that I admired, was that he wasn't drawing detailed pages. What he was drawing was a page that had everything, but it was rendered simply. If you drew a kitchen, there were glasses on the table. There were glasses in the sink. There were salt and pepper shakers, or like a creamer container on a counter. Like all of these things that made this place feel fully realized, like you were looking at a real kitchen. It had all of the detail, but all of it was rendered in a very simple way, like almost like an Alex Tothy. Like he wasn't belaboring any of these things, but it felt detailed because it had all of the objects that would be in a room. This makes me want to go back and look at some old artists, because I have a Milton Caniff collection of Steve Canyon, and I bought it just because I'm like, I need to study some Milton Caniff, and I never have. I still haven't read it yet. Going back and rereading Alex Toth's Doodle Book, he mentioned a lot about Noel Sickles, who I've never really looked at. I only know his work by reputation. That's another comic creator that I'm like, ooh, I should go back and do my research, do my homework. I'd like to think that once I get going, I'll be able to finish a whole page of gray tones in maybe, okay, if I say 45 minutes and all that, if I say half an hour, that's kind of ridiculous. I think I could do it in half an hour if I was incredibly focused, not talking to you guys, and it was a page that wasn't too complicated. Then I could probably finish it in 30 minutes. But I do like to think that I'd be faster than finishing it in an hour. That's probably my goal in the next couple of weeks, is to speed up this process. And I mean, to be fair, this is less about me being a slow artist and more about me making decisions. Because realistically, there's only a little bit more that this panel would need to be done. This panel I'm not 100% happy with, but it's pretty much done. I just need to add in the tones and the deer, and then really I need to work out what I'm doing with this page up here, because the top panel, the first panel, the tones in this are an exercise in simplification. How do I simplify? Because I wanted to get, you got the trees in the background, rocks, shoreline, deer, demon coming out of the water. There's a lot going on here, and I may have over rendered in this. So really the tones here, the goal is going to be to separate things and simplify them. But overall, just in the time that I've been working on this is something that could be finished fairly quickly. In fact, I am going to do something else that I said I wasn't going to do. Usually I only have one panel selected at a time, but I am going to have multiple, like select all of the panels Just keep the gutters separate so that I can actually jump around from frame to frame. Because right now, that feels like that's what I need. And I probably shouldn't be doing the demon first. I should always be doing the sky first, because that's the thing that's farthest back. Because if you paint in the things that are the farthest back, then you can just very simply, when you have something, when I'm painting trees in front of that, I just sort of paint over the sky and I don't have to worry about it. When I'm painting, when I'm painting the deer, I can just paint over it. When I'm painting the water, just paint over that. Of course, this also goes back to the conversation at the start about flats and the fact that, if you've got a flatter or if you've flatted your work beforehand, then you're not really worried about painting over stuff because every element is separated. So when I paint the sky, I'm only painting the sky, and I don't really have to worry about losing any elements or painting over any elements and then coming back. Just hit save. I have forgotten to hit save for a while. That is a very, very bad habit. I need to... Generally, I'm pretty good about saving like every 5 minutes or so. Sorry, I keep yawning. It's very rude. Don't yawn while live stream. Again, don't be like me. See, Ion Rocks says, remember that figure I drew in ink with the food brush? I think autocorrect probably changed it to dude, but I'm pretty sure it's the food brush. It's a Japanese type of brush pen. I said it was horrible because I used to be good at it at basic shapes. The figure was very flat, like it was properly drawn but leaked. I was very upset at my loss of skill. Well, it's okay. It's fair to be upset at something you used to be able to do and now it doesn't seem like you can do very well anymore. Like, by the time I was done graytoning the previous issue of Morningstar, I thought I had really had a good workflow and a methodology down. And the fact that I am now feeling like I'm starting over again, it's challenging and it's humbling. And I think that's something that any creative person who moves through different processes, spends time doing one thing and then goes and tries something else, or is using different mediums, that happens, and it's gonna bug you. So all you can do is get back on the horse and start making art again. So spend less time being angry at yourself and more time enjoying the practice you're getting in now. Amaris says, I'm going to publish my comic as individual chapters in a zine format because it will be cheaper for me. Well, that's a good idea. I mean, you always, when you're footing the bill, you always have to be cost conscious of like what's the best way to get your work out there. For me, I personally chose to publish Morningstar in single issues, even though I write my stories as though they are one long graphic novel. Like, even within the chapters, I don't do a good job of putting recaps at the start of every issue, which I probably should do. But for me, I realize it takes me so long to finish each issue that I was like, I gotta find a way to keep this in front of people. I don't want the people that were kind enough to buy my first book to just up and forget about me and not see what work I do later on. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of good, there's technical reasons, there's financial reasons, there's creative reasons. I'm of a mindset that, as creatives, we have to be flexible on how we are going to produce our work and get our work out there. And what works for one creator may not work for another. What works for you on one book might not work for you on another book. I self-published my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, without serializing it. In fact, I published it as a graphic novel, then ran it as a webcomic, using the webcomic as a chance to promote the print issue. That didn't work that well, and that's what led me to decide for my next book. What was one of the things, aside from the time factor, it led me to decide to do my next book as an individual issues. But even that, I'm like, all right, that's what I'm trying this time. We'll see how it goes with the next book. I don't know if I'll do something different or not. Let's try shit out. Oh yeah, and Amara says, and it will be very easy for me to complete. Yes, that's the other thing, is keeping the ball rolling, keeping that momentum going. It is very hard to do something when you have, I mean, I've done it, and I could do it again, saying, all right, no one's going to see my work for 5 years, and then I'm going to come back and have this finished book. I could do it, but I don't think it would necessarily be the best thing for me in terms of getting my keeping my work in front of people. Well, it would be the opposite of keeping my work in front of people. So, all right. So we have been on for about an hour. If you guys have any last minute questions, go ahead and throw them up in the chat. I'll be on here for a few more minutes, and then I am going to shut it down. See, this is the challenge. This deer really feels like it should have like gray nose, almost like a fox type coloring. Gray nose, white neck. It feels like it should be like that. But I also need that tone to kind of say what is the top of the figure. What I could do is make the rest of this guy gray right here in the middle and still leave this. Yeah, it's all gray. I could make, because right now this is the 20% gray. I could make 20% gray up here and then go to 30 in the body, 30 in the torso. I don't want to go to 40 because that'll be too close to the tones of the demon up here. You know, and I talk all the time about not beating myself up and you guys not beating yourselves up and going easy on yourself with your art. There's also times when I look at this and I'm like, sometimes I need to give myself permission to not like something I drew. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm going to just completely change into like a self-hating artist. But as I look at this and the dissatisfaction that I feel with parts of it is not about, oh, the art is bad. It's more sort of like dissatisfaction is what drives me to make better art. I think that maybe it's just a mental game that I play with myself, but I think I've learned to trick myself into framing the creative process in a positive way, such that whether a piece is coming out well or whether it's coming out poorly, that I don't let that stop me from moving forward with it. It's almost like I try to use that displeasure as fuel. There's always a point at which you can say, all right, how can I, all right, yeah, if I'm not happy with this, so what? No one else is going to fix it for me. I got to fix it. So what can I do to actually make this better? See here. And Mara said, everyone have a good week, a good next week, everyone. And I appreciate that. She's sending out good wishes to everyone in the chat. Ion Rock says, I need to buy How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way and start over from the basics. Nothing wrong with that. I still go back and I've got to tell you, if you really are concerned with just comics, then How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way is good. I'm a big Loomis guy. I would get Andrew Loomis's Figure Drawing for all it's worth, because that book does cover certain amounts of storytelling in terms of visual composition. So it might not necessarily be making comics, but he definitely, composition is storytelling, which is comics. I don't think you need to make it an either or, but I would say if you're trying to get back to fundamentals, I would look at just draftsmanship fundamentals as opposed to comic book fundamentals first. Get both books, study from both books. Iron Rock says, I have been trying to reignite my passion. It's just not going how I thought it would, or not working. Well, the easiest answer I can say is find something that you actually like doing. Like, I can remember when you said, like, you brought up those sketches with the food brush. FUDE for those checking. It's a Japanese brush. But you were very happy making those sketches. The results you may have mixed feelings about, but the actual act of sitting down and drawing them, you enjoyed it quite a bit. Go back to that. When in doubt, go back to the thing that actually makes you happy. When you talk about reigniting your passions, just enjoy the process. Like for me, yeah, there's things in this page that are going to take some work to get through. And it's very possible I may get 5 or 6 pages in and come back to this page and make some changes based on things that I figure out as I go along and as I get better at it. And as I relearn things I've forgotten since the last time I did Graytones. But I still enjoy that process of sitting down and just making the art. So, once again, hang on, screen's going wonky. So, I've got, if you'd like to support this channel, go to patreon.com/Jeremy. If you would like to check out some of my comics and read for free, go to comics.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to buy some of my comics, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. So, that's it for now. Go be creative.